Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us Team Mosso at the1916company.com for all of your purchase pricing and availability questions regarding this watch. Today we're discussing a model that I reviewed all the way back in 2019 at its debut at Dubai Watch Week in 2019. We haven't seen the watch since on the channel, so now it is time for a full in-depth account of the Czapek Quai Midnight in Geneva. It was launched in 2019 in 18 pieces in steel to celebrate the opening of the first Czapek factory boutique in Geneva. We have a case in stainless steel that's 42.5 millimeters in diameter, a svelte 11.9 millimeters thickened from lug tip to lug tip, 50.9 millimeters with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. Cuff shot easily slides underneath a dress sleeve over the top, which typically exaggerates the width of the watch. You can still see the lugs are not over the edge of my wrist. The definitive shot is this one, where you can see that the lugs are still slightly inboard of the edge of my wrist on each side. So I believe you can wear this watch on a wrist my size or larger, so 16 centimeters circumference and up. Taking a look at the strap, you can see featuring Czapek factory spec with a combination of rubber underneath for souplesse against the skin and also to guard the alligator leather against the moisture, heat, sweat, and oil of the wrist for a longer lasting strap. We have a medium blue matte finish. We have medium rectangular scale alligator leather with a folded edge and a monotone stitch. The lugs are drilled very close to the case to create an inboard pivot point from side to side such that the pivot points are narrower across the wrist than the actual lug-to-lug span to help its fit on a smaller wrist. Problem is when you do that, sometimes there is constraint against the side of the case and the strap can't move freely. So here curved spring bars are used, and you can see that pull tabs are used in the spring bars so you can pop the strap off the case without tools. Taking a quick look, you can see there is no crimping, there is no gouging. This is a brand new Czapek factory strap, and that's not just a slip of the tongue. Czapek and Patek from 1839 until 1844, they were actually partners in Patek et Czapek, and they were both refugees from Poland who settled in Geneva and began making watches together. And then when Czapek went his own way in 1845, he started his own company. Patek went his own way, and along with Adrien Philippe, created Patek Philippe. So once upon a time, this was the original partner in Antoine Norbert de Patek's watchmaking operation in Switzerland. Simple stainless steel buckle. You can see it has a little bit of the shape of the lug profile, and it's not a generic part, having a little bit of a fluting or maybe a cam-like swell across its top, satination on its profile, and then both media blast and polish. It's a nice little buckle and easily adjustable. Taking a look at the case, we have a media blasted recess in the profile, so it's scooped out, scalloped, and then media blasted within its recesses. Then we have polishing. We have a little bit of satination on the edge of the bezel, and then more satination on the shear guards for the crown. Here you can see the year that Czapek started his company, absent Patek. And of course, we have a bezel that is very shallow and domed, and it just about matches the curvature of the sapphire, so it's one continuous unbroken domed arc. You can also see that the bezel is somewhat sunken below the hoods of the lugs. This is a trick watch designers use to make a thinner watch without cropping the lugs by situating the bezel entirely on top. That would limit how far they can arc, whereas if they're allowed to ride up partway up the bezel along the side, you can have a more open, arcing, extended lug that's more graceful. The watch does feature a degree of water resistance, maybe a bit more than you think, 50 meters, solidly more than the dress watch standard of 30. But the watch is all about its dial. Aventurine glass, it's a type of vitreous enamel that's very dark and almost opaque, but it has mineral elements in there to twinkle like the stars above Geneva during midnight. So this is the Midnight in Geneva model, and we have radially arrayed Roman numerals In silver, on the Aventurine glass base, this is a fired enamel, so up to 20 firings at 800 degrees centigrade to create this artisanal dial. And then we have a railroad track outboard for counting the minutes. We have hands, hours, and minutes with a matte silver finish to match the printing of the dial, and they include little fleur-de-lis motifs. We have a sub-seconds display, and you can see here when I pull the crown out all the way, we do have stop seconds. We also have a 7-day power reserve, courtesy of twin manually wound mainspring barrels. And assuming you wind on the same day every week, you can also double up the use of the power reserve indicator as a day of the week indicator. So that's the idea of having those two scales. Taking a look at the reverse side, a limited edition of 18. This is number 6. This is the Midnight in Geneva edition. And then we have a slightly different finish here. The movement was created in collaboration with Chronode, which is a very famous movement manufacturer created by watchmaker and engineer Jean-Francois Maujon. The movement here has the twin barrels. It's beautifully arrayed with a combination of media blast, mirror-polished bevels. We have both polished and fire-blued screws, satination on the wheels, and if you look, you can even see that there's beveling inside the two ratchet wheels. There's a lovely solarization on the crown wheel. And then if you take a look, you can see the click on this ratchet wheel features satination. There's also satination on the train wheels. And then the bridge for the escapement, as well as the base plate, also media blasted, designed to give it more of a vintage aesthetic than something with modern Côte de Genève. It beats away at 3 hertz, and as you can see, 31 joules, caliber SXH1, the first movement to be launched in Czapek's watches. Czapek was a reborn watch brand created by a group of enthusiasts and investors during the 2010s. So that's where this watch and the company behind it come from. And having Chronode behind the movement means you don't have the same kind of risks and subpar engineering compromises that you often get on new and small brands. Chronode does things one way, the right way, or I suppose the alternative would be not at all. So this is effectively a Chronode movement made by people who have Harry Winston Opus and IWC level standards for their watchmaking. And that is how this watch movement is built, with a dial to match, and a brand from folks who genuinely love watches, are active on social media, and are a lot of fun to know. So when you are a Czapek owner, you're also part of the Czapek family. If you love this watch, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.